Hello, everyone. This is Mark with Sales Wisdom, and welcome to episode number 5 of the Journeys of Great Salespeople. Today, our special guest is Janna Duenas. Janna, she started her career by attending the School of the Chicago Art Institute. So, really, very lofty education, Janna. I think you're at the top of the list of all of our guests. And you then started your business career as a designer. You went back to work for the Chicago Art Institute and Minneapolis School of Art as well, too. I found that to be fascinating. Then you kind of moved over into the corporate world. You did production support as a solutions consultant. You went to work for KM and did that out in the field for quite a bit of time. But then you made your first move into sales, and that was with Zycon, where you became one of their top performers in a very short period of time. And now, more recently, you've made another change into flexo and packaging with Anderson and Vreeland, leading company for many years in that business segment. You're still in sales as an account manager, but you earned the ability to take over the largest territory in North America. I think that's quite an honor and a responsibility that you've had, but you've earned it, I believe, through your hard work and success along the way. So, everyone, please say hello and welcome Janna Duenas to today's Wisecast. Janna, thanks for joining us. Congratulations on already in your young career having such a great
Thank you.
journey. And it's great to
Thank you,
see you.
Mark. It's so good to be here. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, this was,
Lovely
I mean,
introduction.
well, thank you. I look forward to everybody. You know what it's like. It's like family or kids, but I really was looking forward today because, of course, we've worked together. We had some great times and exchanges along the way. And of course, I'm just so pleased to see where you've gone and what kind of success you've had in your career and starting a family all at the same time. So it's really,
Yes, it's been
really,
a crazy couple of years for sure.
Absolutely. So maybe I kind of touched on it, but when you graduate a place like Chicago Art Institute, I guess there's a lot of different directions you can go. And ultimately you ended up in the print industry. So maybe tell us a little bit about behind the scenes, what
Sure.
happened and how all of that unfolded.
Yeah, well, that's definitely where it all started. So when I decided to go to art school, I wanted to be a painter. And I don't know if you know that about me,
No, I
but
didn't.
yeah, I took a lot of painting classes my first year. And I also signed up for a print class. Didn't really know a lot about print. I went to public high school, so I didn't have very much introduction into what print was. Um, and very quickly in that class, I realized that while I enjoyed making paintings, I really liked making one painting and making a bunch of copies of it. So that kind of spearheaded my passion, lifelong passion at this point of print. And in my education, which was very traditional for the most part, I learned about stone lithography, um, photo offset, intaglio, etching, screen printing on textiles. So it was a very process-based education, which is where I fell in love with the process of print. As I kind of expanded my knowledge in printmaking, I started to dip my toe into the digital world and integrated that in my work, which is where I started to kind of learn software like a sponge. I was, learning Photoshop and Illustrator for the first time and creating prints out of these digital files that I created. And really what that, showed me that had a big interest in digital. I had a big interest in how I can use computers to make physical artwork. Um, and in that process, I accumulated a lot of knowledge and skill, to be honest, mostly self-taught, just by using it in my own art practice. That I was teaching myself all of these, basically the software that, our customers use all the time in print. So with that knowledge, when I left school and graduated, I knew I wanted to work in print and I knew I was pretty good at software. So, it's funny in my career, I look back and there were these several moments, and I'm sure, actually you're a part of one of them, but where I think, huh, I think I'd like to do that, or I think I'd like to work there. And I end up getting there some one way or another, maybe it's like a little voice in the back of my head that pushes me along there. But I remember when I was in school, seeing and utilizing the service bureau that we had at the school, the Art Institute of Chicago, which was an amazing resource. A ton of basically it's a digital printing lab, where we could work with the staff there to learn software, learn about paper, learn about, printing, bookmaking, binding. And I thought, I think I'd be really good at that. So yeah, lo and behold, that's what I did after I graduated. I got that job and I worked at two different universities in that role. So it was a lot of teaching, a lot of teaching students, but I learned a lot about digital production as well during that time. And we offered so many services that it was kind of like, um, yeah, I just a little bit, you had to be a little bit of a jack of all trades for that. Um, but the customer audience there is pretty narrow, right? We did serve staff, the museum and students, but in a bunch of different arenas. So yeah, painters, sculptors, graphic designers, etc. But then as I knew I was kind of outgrowing that position, I was eager to get into kind of more of the big leagues. So then, like you said, I broke out into the corporate world and went through several roles that led me into sales. So I worked for Konica Minolta as a technical consultant. That taught me a lot more about, expanded my printing knowledge a lot more, but also had a consultative role where I learned a lot about sales. And then another one of those moments where I had a little voice in the back of my head that said, I worked alongside all these salespeople and I thought, I think I'd be pretty good at this. And then I get an inbox or a message in my inbox on LinkedIn from you that said, have you ever thought about a sales role? And I was like, yeah, I think about it all the time, actually. So we started talking, and then 3 months later, I joined your team at Zycon. So um, yeah, that was my story about how I got into sales and how, yeah, my passion for print has been there pretty much the whole time. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
that's my story.
that's a great story, Jana. And of course, I remember. Thank you for mentioning that, and I remember that part, of course. So, let, let, I think it's be helpful for some of the people who are watching because of course, there's a lot of people who are on that earlier part of your journey right now, and they might be stuck or wondering and contemplating if they can do something different in their career. So,
Hmm.
you explained kind of how that happened, but. Okay, there was, I like to call it day two, right, of
Right.
being in sales, where all of a sudden you're not that other person anymore. Now you're the salesperson. What were some of the things that you started to learn early on that, let's put first, like in the challenges, wow, I didn't realize this. And then
Yeah.
obviously there's upside and rewards as well, too, that might not have been obvious. So how did all of that work when you first started in your sales career?
Yeah, I think that, you know, um, before, as I was saying when we were talking earlier, that I had a lot of impressions about sales that were maybe untrue. When I worked in my technical consultant role at KM, I got a lot more exposure to what salespeople were actually like, and what the sales process was like in print. Before, I mean, think of me as a painting student. I think of a salesperson and I'm like, oh, I'm thinking of like a used car salesman stereotype, like, oh, they just care about, dollars and cents and they, have all these tricks up their sleeve. But really, once I got into the industry where I I worked alongside these people. I saw what value they would create, what service that they would provide to their customers and how collaborative that process was. I mean, I was a part of it. Um, it really opened my eyes to sales. And I think that in my role at KM, um, I could get to a certain point with the deal, but I couldn't close it all the way. Um, and you know, I wanted to be more a part of that, to own the process from a bigger perspective. So when I took that leap, I finally thought I got it. I got it. I own the process. I could own it. So the challenges that came out of that was owning the process.
Yeah.
You can't just insert your little bit of knowledge and, move on to the next opportunity. You really were, um, you know, taking care of your customers holistically, not just throughout the deal, but as a partner. And I got a taste of that as a technical consultant, but it's not quite the same as being a general account manager. I think that the kind of trust that you have to establish to even get your foot in the door is just completely different. So I think that yeah, those challenges were I didn't have meetings set up for me. I had to set up the meetings. How do I distinguish myself and prove myself to these people enough to let that to have the conversation in the first place. So yeah, I'd say that was probably learning, I guess, learning how to my own voice and how to do that was a challenge. And I think it's a challenge for anyone starting in sales, because everyone
Absolutely.
has a different style. And I think that being your authentic self in how you go about that is going to give you the most successful results because yeah, people don't like the pushy salesperson. That's who I thought it was. I thought that stereotype was really, and I guess for some people it may be true, but um that's just not how I found any of my success. And yeah, it's just not how I go about my work. So yeah,
So you thank you. That was a good description of the, I think, like you said, very common and typical
yeah,
challenges that everyone
yeah,
faces. But then you have to find your own voice and your own style and your own way, your own
yeah,
brand, right? To
yeah,
be unique, to stand out and differentiate yourself, like you said.
yeah,
So, but there's good days. There's probably more frustrating days in sales than there are good days. But
sure,
we live for the good days, right?
yeah,
What
yeah.
was it? Was there one day, either a first time or a big event or something, where you more or less you came home and said, "I did it. I made it. I can do it now," or I feel like I'm successful. I know it. Was there something that was almost like a turning point for you, getting you out of that learning curve and where you felt like I can really do this?
I think, well, I mean, you have personal experience with me with this, but I think that selling one of my first presses was a pretty big deal for me. Um, you can work really hard to gain someone's trust and have a good relationship with them, but until, you know, they give you, that business, it's really just something you continuously work at as a salespeople, especially in capital equipment sales, it's a long process. It's a really long, big project. And getting it over the finish line is like, like it's a feeling like nothing else. Definitely doesn't mean the work's done there. It's just beginning, but in
That's
another
right.
way. But like I said, that partnership continues and just changes with your, relationship, whether you're adding a press onto a current customer or a new customer. Um, but I think that two things really come to mind is um making new business appointments. I think when I especially, now that I've changed it into Flexo, which is kind of a new world for me in print, um going out and finding new opportunities, stones unturned, if you will. Um it feels really, really good. It feels like I can bring a fresh perspective to maybe, yeah, a territory that had for a long time, an established salesperson who, did an incredible job. But if I can find anything that he missed, I mean, amazing. So
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a challenge though, trust me.
Oh, I know,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's, really listening to you, and I'm sure for people who don't know you, you've had some significant changes and accomplishments already in your career through university, design, production, sales support,
Hmm.
then to sales, now into a completely different industry. So you've not only changed your career into sales, but you also changed industries, more or less,
Right.
or a segment within the industries. So and you're very accomplished, but we all know there's always someone or some way that we need help along the way, right? And that can be mentors, it can be books, it can be on the job, it can be, late nights of doing this. What's Jana's story? What or who or how are some of the stories or ways or that you learned and how it helped you be successful along the way, or
Uh,
sometimes just survive even, right, to get to the
yeah.
next step.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, at the beginning, I mean, there are so many people that come to mind. I could, how much time do you have? Basically at every stage of my career, and I'll name some of them today, but and I'm sure I'll forget some that I really should name, but I think that as, part to give them, pay respects to how they've helped me, but also, give some advice in this moment, is that,
Yes.
with, like I talked about how starting my career in print, I had been largely self-taught. I did have a traditional printmaking education, but from a digital perspective and a software perspective, I was largely self-taught. And I think that you'll agree that on-the-job training is the best training you'll
Yes.
ever get. So, yeah, so a little bit of advice is just to like jump in the deep end. And there will be people there to help you. Veterans of the print industry, uh, you know, first comes to mind is you as my continued mentor. I just appreciate your guidance so much. There are mentors all around us in the print industry, especially as a younger person. I won't say I'm young anymore, but when I started in this career as a young person, you do get some funny looks, especially as a woman. A young woman coming into the print industry, especially, when I started, um, I definitely met with some, I'd say, mild skepticism. But to be honest, really that would dissolve pretty quickly when you show, a lot of passion. People want to teach you. People want to teach you no matter what who you are. So, whether that's a customer or a coworker, a professor, really like just lean on your resources. I think about each, you know, uh people that have helped me in my career. Obviously, you, Mike Hannigan at Konica Minolta. Thank you so much for mentoring me in my role when I was a production solutions consultant there. He would go to appointments with me and teach me, how to interact with customers, answer my questions until I could kind of take my training wheels off. Um, Steve Kasarowski, I just replaced him at A&V after a 36-year career, and had the privilege of shadowing him for a month, as we transitioned me as the main account manager. And it was just an incredible experience. He taught me so much in such a short amount of time, but I'm so grateful for that. And yeah, I wish I had more time for them. Thankfully, I'm still in contact with him, but yeah, I would just say lean on your resources, find your trusted people, and yeah, stay hungry for knowledge and information. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one great thing you said there was just jump in
Hmm.
and do it, and there will be people there who want to help you.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's really great advice too, that can be easily overlooked. Hey, we come from a honorable but long-standing traditional business.
Yeah.
And so for I think for every little bit where there are people who look skeptically on young people and young
Hmm.
females in particular in those situations, there's more people who are willing to help you when you
Oh
do
yeah.
show up, like you said. And I think that's important for people to
Yeah.
hear. And it's not easy for us to say that
Yeah.
right now. I made a jump like that earlier in my career. You did as well too. But looking back, we know that was probably the best thing we did. And as you said, on the job, learning while you're doing from
Yeah.
people who are doing it and collaborating with them is just, nothing beats that really.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. That's what you learn.
Yeah,
And I think that, yeah, just be humble. Say, if you don't know something, just be honest. Everyone did something for the first time once. So,
right.
I think that it's just, yeah, don't be afraid to look dumb.
Yeah,
You know, you gotta just be honest about when you need help. And yeah, I mean, I think I can speak for a lot of people that have been in this industry a long time, but if I had someone approach me saying, I'm just getting started, how did you get where you were? I would be thrilled to help them. So,
yep.
and I
Well,
think,
save a couple of those thoughts. That'll be our last.
yeah,
We'll wrap up with that
sure.
question today. But
Yeah.
but I wanted to ask you like a kind of a fun one, interesting one, but also I'm sure challenging. You just changed from where you've spent most of your career more on the commercial print side of it, on
Hmm.
label and packaging. You've dabbled in that here and there, but now you're fully immersed in that, right?
Oh yeah.
And I know you're learning a lot more, but what are a couple of things that the general public or even people within the print industry have like no clue about when it comes to flexo or labels or packaging?
Oh
It's
my
almost a
gosh.
mysterious industry. So is there
It is
anything that really
mysterious.
that
It
stands out to you?
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was in a training last week with my polymer team and my manager said, he was like, it's crazy how much brain and like how much manpower goes into making, a rubber stamp essentially that's gonna, create a product that gets thrown away. But it's true. We
Yeah.
spend all this time and effort on stuff that people often like overlook when they walk into a Trader Joe's or something. But yeah, I think that that's probably what people really don't realize. I mean, how much work goes into the products in your store. And I mean, there's just not, I mean, from not only the technology of the printing plates themselves, but the tape that holds it onto the cylinders that go into the printing presses, the amount of engineering that goes into making that absolute perfect tape, is, decades of research and testing and, yeah, it's just I mean, how deep down the rabbit hole do you want to go, That's like so many things in print.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so yeah, it's just funny. I guess I think so many people, non-print people, when you say, like, oh, I work in the print industry, and they say things like, oh, like newspapers. And it's like, well, look around you, like go into like a Walmart or a Target, like all the shelves have printed product, they're all printed. And they're like, I guess they are, I guess you're right. I don't even think about that. So
Right.
yeah, it's just that every product you buy, a tube of toothpaste, the process to print a tube of toothpaste is actually, pretty involved. It's pretty special, to be honest. And, you just don't really think about that. But
No.
then once you do think about it, you never unsee it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. Walking into a Target is never the same.
That's a great way to put it. And I
Yeah.
didn't even think of this till now, but you probably don't think about paper very much, very often anymore, right? I mean, when you think
Oh,
about
yeah, not
what,
much. Yeah, most of
yeah,
my customers are not printing on paper, but we have a few. Even what's interesting is even we work with some paper mills that don't do printing at all because they use splicing tapes and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, it just looking back at my career, it's kind of interesting to see how where the en industries kind of like slightly overlap, like us with, digital background and how that overlaps with Flexo or, it's like you
yep,
kind of see somebody across the room and you're like, "Oh yeah, we've played in the same room before." Um, it's just those kind of relationships are so interesting to me. Um, and yeah, they lead you to new opportunities, to new knowledge. So it's been a wild ride, but I'm so happy that I'm still here in the industry. And yeah,
And you're in a great spot in a in a great segment in the industry. And when over the years, when I think of Flexo, I think of Anderson and Vreeland right away. So you're with such a great company as well too, and a nice family kind of environment. I think that's,
yes,
perfect for you, and happy that you were able to land there. So you brought up earlier, and let's maybe start to wind down with this. If somebody were to ask you, somebody younger, your 24-year-old self, so to speak, right, on some of the things and decisions you've made, or guidance that they might need, what are some things that you would tell people who are at that point of their career? And it can be geared at younger people, it can be geared at young females, people in
sure.
print or not print, whatever you think would be helpful for those who might be watching.
Well, I am an oldest child of three girls. So I don't want to say I was my younger sister's mentors by any means, but I saw them kind of go through the same process, right? They're like, you go into college, you're like, I think I'm kind of interested in this, but how can I, make a career out of it? And just what I really found to be helpful is to lean on your passions for sure, but lean on your strengths as well. So, looking back, it makes sense I am where I am because one, I loved print. I just loved the process, but I also love people. And I love to talk. Leaning on the way that I make relationships and connections, and then integrating that with technology, with printmaking, we didn't even touch on this, but color science, I'm super interested in that. It all kind of blended together into a career that I didn't even know existed when I was going into college, to be honest. So I think that, but I got here by leaning on my strengths and my passions. So, um, I think that those two things and surrounding yourself with like-minded people who support you in those passions, it'll help you make those connections where you have those opportunities where you say, oh, like I said, when I saw people at the service bureau when I was in college and I was like, I think I'd be good at that job. And I got it. Just that kind of thing, can happen. If you're feeling lost, you're not sure where you want to go, you're interested in print, but you don't know where you want to get in the industry, whether it's in sales, production, R&D. Like I said, just stay passionate, stay curious, and you know, yeah, lean on
And
lean on those passions and strengths.
and one thing you said clearly you did is you kept your eyes open for opportunities that came to you or were in front of you. Because
Yeah,
when you started in not only at the Art Institute, but then in your business career, you didn't know this is where you're going to end up.
yeah. I
So I
didn't
think it's
I didn't when I
important for people.
started. Yeah. But
Yeah,
I got a
it's
little bit closer each time and that like became more clear, in the windshield. Where, for example, like when I worked at the Art Institute and the Service Bureau, I saw and was trained by people who did the job that I would eventually do at Konica Minolta. So that's what I mean by keeping my eyes open. And I'm like, huh, I think I'd be good at that. And then that kind
Yep.
of, um, and then led me to where I am today. So, yeah, I don't think you need to figure out what you want to be when you grow up right away. I don't.
Right. Great
Because you might not
advice.
even know that job exists. So,
Right, exactly. Keep your eyes open, move forward, network with people,
yes.
let people help you, right? So you
Hmm.
can learn. And when an opportunity presents itself, it's just another door. It's the next door to the next door
Absolutely.
to the next door. And that's what you did. And Jana, you've made such a great career for yourself, and you still are a young person. I can attest to that. But for such a short time, relatively speaking, in your career, you've had a lot of great successes, a great
Thank
path,
you.
a great journey. You've been successful at everything you've done. And I know for certain that the best testimony is always not what we think of ourselves, but what our clients and our customers and our coworkers think of us. And your reputation and what you've done over the years is impeccable in that. So
Oh,
I think you have a lot to be proud of. You're a great example for a lot of young people out there to look up to and to follow. And I wish you just all the best going forward. A&V's has a great person taking over that territory. I know that they know that, and I'm glad that you two found each other. And I think
yes.
it's a great way
Thank
to do that.
you.
So Jana, thank you for being here. Wish you all the best success. And if anyone wants to find Jana on LinkedIn and get some advice from her, I'm sure she could give you some very sound advice as well. So thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. And this is episode 5 of the Journeys of Great Salespeople. I'm a little sad because this is the last one scheduled, but we have
Oh,
a potential secret of bringing everybody together. So we'll let everybody know about that soon. Jana, thank you again for everything you've done, for your friendship, and for sharing your journey with us.
thanks again, Mark.